If you have been coming for the last couple of weeks, or maybe you've had a look at the flyer in your chair, or maybe you've seen the posters around the room, it cannot have passed you by that we are looking at gearing up for the Life Course and 2 Life Course dinners. And for the sake of people who've maybe visiting us tonight, new tonight, or the people who've joined us in the last few months, allow me to say a little bit about the Life Course. I realise that many of us here will have come through the Life Course, we'll have done the Life Course, and we may have even come to faith through the Life Course. But as I say, for the sake of our guests, for the sake of new people, let me just say a little bit about it, because it's important we're all on the same page. So the Life Course is a 7-week course we run here at St Mary's. It starts on Wednesday, the 2nd of October, and really it seeks to kind of address the kind of question of what does it look like for us to be living our best life. There are 2 kinds of groups for non-Christians and groups for Christians, and we have found that generally both groups get a lot out of doing the course. Each evening there's fantastic food. Who's done the Life Course here already? How good's the food? Gosh, there's a lot of you. Top tier food. It is fantastic food. Your team will bring drinks for you. There's a short and stimulating presentation, and then you go off into relevant small groups. And the whole point is you get to have these discussions and the space to kind of discuss stuff. Week 1 of the Life Course looks at what does it look like for us to live our best life? Kind of what gives us significance? How do we find love? That kind of thing. Week 2 looks at the philosophical parts of life, like science, atheism, agnosticism, new atheism, and cancel culture. Then on the 3rd week, we start to look at religion as kind of the historical and current real definer and that people find meaning in. We also look at contemporary spirituality, things like crystals and astrology and that sort of thing. And then Christianity is a contrast with these religions. Christianity is not a religion, but is about a relationship with Jesus. And then from there, we go on and we give the evidence for Jesus' death and resurrection. Each week, we will take people back to the person of Jesus as we believe he's the one that we find true rest in. And that will be done through looking at a story in the gospel of an encounter with Jesus. But the idea is, as we go over the course, the first 3 weeks are pretty broad in context, and then we kind of get deeper into kind of Christian claims and the historical evidence of Jesus. But across the whole time, people can discuss what they would like to discuss in the relevant groups. It is meant to be an open context, and that's our hope and our experience here at St Mary's. So at this point of time, I'd like you to consider 3 things. 1, are you new here? Have you joined us in the last few months or the last few weeks? And have you been checking us out? If so, can I personally invite you to come and do the Life Course? The QR code's behind me. There are flyers at the back. Sign up. Let us know you're coming. It is the best way to make friends here at St Mary's and get to know a bunch of people. It's also the best way to understand more about us and our distinct culture here. If you are in that category of people, you might also want to consider, do you have a friend who you think might also enjoy the course that you would like to bring along with you? Can I leave that with you? Thirdly, for the rest of you who've done the course, you've been before, you call this place home, can I ask you to consider who it is that God might be asking you to invite to come and complete the course? We're going to come back round to that, and there'll be an opportunity to respond later. But what we do in the autumn term, and we have done for many years now, is we throw a dinner. Who's been to a Life Course dinner? All right, quite a lot of you. This is quite fun. We throw a Life Course dinner. We basically transform this space, and it is the prelude to the course. And over the summer months, a few people got in touch with us. They had prophetic words for us, and we felt as a team that the right thing for us to do was to throw 2 dinners this time, to kind of stretch ourselves in faith and be responsive to God. It's what we believe we do here at church. So we've got one on Wednesday, the 25th of September, and then one on the Friday. There's 2 opportunities to be inviting your loved ones. Now, just in case you've never been to a dinner, let me show you some photos of what it's like. Yeah, come on, it's nice, isn't it? The wonderful Hannah, the creative genius amongst the staff team, has a vision for how this place will look, and basically we transform it into the best pop-up Marylebone restaurant. I know because I've gone to lots of the restaurants in Marylebone, and I can say that this is the best pop-up one there is. The whole place will be transformed. There will be tables running from the front to the back. There will be plenty of space for your friends to sit with you. If you bring a group of 5 and we will ensure you sit together as a group of 5. If you're bringing 10 people, we'll ensure you have an entire table to sit at. If you come alone or just with one person, you'll be placed on a table with a host. Do not worry, we've done this for many years. We are geniuses at this. But the whole place will be heaving, I promise you that. There is going to be live music. We've got 2 incredible guest performers. I know because I booked them. They're not members of this church, but they will be fantastic, I promise you that. And as you can see from the photos, the place will be heaving. And then John, our beloved leader, who sends his love to you, he is currently in New Zealand. He is flying back for this. You can trust John. He's an evangelist. In fact, I would say it's John at his finest. John at his finest is when he is operating in his full evangelistic mode. You can trust him with your non-Christian friends. It is his finest gifting. It is a wonder to witness. He will not embarrass you. We will not embarrass you. We promise you. You can trust us. But I do want to say that we want to do this together. And as you can see, it's going to be a lot of fun. People genuinely enjoy themselves when they come. There's going to be a huge Lebanese feast to enjoy. As I said, live music, guest performers. John will do a short but inspiring talk, inviting people to sign up to the life course. Just to say, it is bring a bottle. Apparently the morning service asked that question this morning. Yes, you need to bring your own bottle to this one. We're not providing it. But do invite your friends. And really what I want to say to you at this time is, could you count yourself in? Could you count yourself in to the dinners? Wednesday the 25th, Friday the 27th, we're going to gather here and have a dinner party. And it'll be a whole heap more fun, the more of us that are at it. Okay, I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. But over the last couple of weeks, if you've been here, you'll know that we're on a series. We're looking at what it looks like to seek first the kingdom of God. And we've looked at what it looks like for us to experience the kingdom. And I want to talk tonight about what it looks like for us to join in the actions of the kingdom. And tonight we're going to read from Matthew's Gospel, Matthew chapter 18 from verse 10 to 14. It's the parable of the wandering sheep. See that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I tell you that their angels in heaven always see the face of my Father in heaven. What do you think? If a man owns 100 sheep and one of them wanders away, will he not leave the 99 on the hills and go and look for that one that wandered off? And if he finds it, truly I tell you, he is happier about that one sheep than about the 99 that did not wander off. And in the same way, your Father in heaven is not willing that any of these little ones should perish. So just to give a tiny bit of context, what happens at the beginning of Matthew's Gospel is that the disciples ask a question. The disciples say, who then is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And they're posing this question to Jesus. And the chapter 18 of Matthew's Gospel really just focuses on trying to answer this one question. Who is the greatest in the kingdom? And what Jesus does is he uses a narrative storytelling form of communication, which is called a parable. And what I actually want to say is this particular parable, and many of the parables, what they actually function like is a bit like a prophecy. It's Jesus saying, hey, this is the way of the world, but yet this is the way of the kingdom. This is how you are supposed to live. This is how it's supposed to be. And the parables are both timely and timeless. And that they speak to us today as much as they did to the disciples. And that parable that I just read to us can be summed up in one sentence. Kingdom people seek wandering people. Kingdom people seek wandering people. So there are three key players in this story. You've got the shepherd, you've got the sheep, the flock of sheep, and you've got the wandering sheep. So let's have a look at them in a bit more detail. Now, a little fact about me and my family that I've probably not disclosed to you before. I come from farmers. In fact, I come from sheep farmers in the Highlands of Scotland, and my cousin Helen still owns that farm. So I had a little conversation with her about sheep, and she said this to me: sheep get really easily distracted. Not the whole flock. She wants you all to know that, okay? It's not the flock at large, it's just that one. And she said, it'll be like looking over, and it'll be like see something in the distance, and it's like, oh, just go over there, but the flock is going in this direction. You've got this one sheep wandering over here. So that's where you have a sheepdog. And even with the best intentions, you will find that a sheep will just go wandering in its own little world, doing its own little thing. Charles Spurgeon, who is a theologian and a preacher, says this: no creature strays more easily than a sheep. None is more heedless. And none so incapable of finding its way back to the flock. Once gone astray, it will bleat for the flock and then run in the opposite direction to the place where the flock is. When I read that, I thought that sounds quite like me at times. I can definitely go wandering when I want to. And although I may call for my flock, I still quite often go in the opposite direction to where I actually know they might be. And the sheep who wander off cannot save themselves. They need a shepherd to go and rescue them. They need someone to go and find them and direct them back to where the flock is. Left alone, the sheep is totally doomed. So let's have a look at the actions of the shepherd in this story. If you read the same parable in Luke 15, Jesus says the shepherd finds the sheep and picks it up and places it across its shoulders. It's a place of intimacy. We don't read that the shepherd is condemning the sheep. We don't read that it berates the sheep or that it takes a stick and it beats the sheep back into line. What we read is this place of compassion and mercy. I pick the sheep up and place it upon my shoulders. In other words, you're safe now. I found you. It's going to be okay. You can rest because I'm going to take you back to the flock where you belong. And a few years ago, we were looking at this parable in kids' church, and a kid stuck their hand up in the air, and they said, are we the 99? And I was like, yeah, got it, you're the 99. He just went and said, does God not care about us? Because God left us. And I don't know about you, but I've sat and wondered about that quite a lot. What about the 99? Do they just not matter? And actually, I think the truth of it is that the shepherd, when Jesus talks about this, he's talking about God, has assessed the risk to the 99. and yet has deemed that one that's gone astray so valuable that he must go and seek it. There is safety in the numbers. They're going to be okay. I'm going to take this risk because that one is so valuable to me that I cannot leave it. Now, a quick note on sheep that I also found out from my cousin. They're not dumb animals like we often say. They're actually dependent animals, was what she said to me. That's their thing. They're dependent. It's the way they're created to be. They're dependent on the shepherd. They need the shepherd. Should you know, other animals like pigs, they have this really defined sense of smell, and they put their nose to the ground, and that is their trademark. I was like, maybe bacon. Sorry, vegans in the room. Total side point. But they have this really strong sense of smell, right? Or horses that she also keeps on the farm. She's like, they are so strong, they can carry so much. But sheep are dependable. And they're dependent. And that is their gift. It's not a weakness. That actually it's a blessing. It's a place of honor. So when Jesus describes us as being like a sheep, it's not because we're dumb. It's actually because we are created to be dependent upon God, the good shepherd. It's a place of honor. It's a place of blessing. And when we read this story in this parable, we want to note the movement in the parable. And the movement is always towards the one who is wandering. The shepherd seeks that one. That God seeks the one who is wandering. And God is seeking to bring all of those back who are wandering around. All those who've wandered away. All those who've never heard of him. All those who've turned their back on church for good reason. He is seeking to restore them all. For them to find their place in the flock. For them to belong. Because that is how it's supposed to be. It's active behavior. It's not passive. It's active behavior. And it's designed to communicate to us that that one wandering sheep is of infinite value. That you are of infinite value to God. Each of us. Each and every one. If one of us wanders away, he's going to pursue us. When we're in a state of wandering internally, he pursues us. You are of infinite value. Your friends, your loved ones, your colleagues, they're of infinite value to God. He cares for them. He loves them. And he wants them to be returned to him. And so what does this wandering look like in our culture? Well, I've shared this before, but growing up, I grew up in a really dysfunctional, broken home. My dad was an alcoholic, and he was quite abusive to us. And the way in which I built security was in my work. This is long before I was a Christian. I worked in the fashion industry, I worked particularly in the makeup field, and I could talk to you a lot about the joy of seeing my work in print. Or I could talk to you the joy of working backstage at Fashion Week and the thrill I got from it. Or I could talk to you about the lonely nights spent in hotels when I travelled for work and becoming disconnected from my friends because I was barely in London at the times. Or I could talk to you about being in an abusive relationship and the fact that I got disconnected from my family. I could talk to you about how it felt when I didn't get that job and I was worried about where money was going to come from when I was a freelancer. And I could talk to you about the shame and embarrassment I felt when my best friend got hired above me. And so for me, at that time, on paper, life looked real good. But actually my wandering was parties, endless drinking, endless sex. And it was a friend who didn't massively know me anymore, we'd grown up together, who texted me randomly one day and said, hey, do you want to come to church? So I went along, and I remember it vividly. I turned up, and I just had this sense of coming home, like this internal sense, something shifted. I did a course much like the life course. I felt relief that there was a space to ask some questions that I'd been holding. I felt the relief that I was with like-minded people. And when there was an invitation to open myself to Jesus, I did it, even though I didn't fully know what was going on at the time. And I had this overwhelming experience of feeling loved, overwhelming experience that I had come home. I was this one person's one invite. And I spoke to them all recently, and I said to them, I'll always be grateful you invited me to come to church. And she said to me, I was just at church, you popped into my mind, and I just thought, I'll invite her, but she'll never come. She'll never turn up. I was her one invite. I was the wandering person that she called home. Well, what about Serene? Many of you will have heard this as shared before, and she's given me permission to share it tonight. But Serene wasn't a Christian, wasn't brought up a Christian, didn't grow up in a Christian home. And she moved to London from France. She went to university. She moved in some housemates. And one of them said, do you want to come to church tonight? Serene suffered with crippling social anxiety. That when she first started coming here, she would hide in the back in the corner. So bad was her anxiety in the room. And yet she met Jesus. And Jesus was kind and gentle and gracious and took it at her pace. And we get the privilege and the benefit of seeing Serene, who is full of joy, who will sing during notices, who hears you guys and loves you guys and is fierce for the Spirit and is one of the people I know who knows what it's like to know the darkness and see light break through, who has a serious gift of intercession. She was one person's invite. Or a mate of mine who used to come here. He was on staff team for a bit, and he spent years being invited to this life course. Years upon years, his girlfriend would invite him. She was a Christian, he was not. And years he would say no. And she ended up getting a group of people to pray, and she extended the invite yet again. Courageously, she would consistently invite him. And on one occasion, he said yes, and he came along. And he did a little bit of a course, and then he went away again. And then he did a bit more of the course, and he became a Christian. He went on to join our staff team. He was our youth worker for a long time. Absolutely phenomenal transformation, because she courageously kept inviting him to come to the life course. Matt said this last week, and I fully agree with him. Do you know what? Baptisms and life returners are the best services we have here at St. Mary's. They really are. It is such a privilege to hear people's stories of life was like this, and now it's like this. Life was like this, and now it's like this. Baptism's coming up. Can I tell you, we've got some phenomenal stories. They're a privilege to hear. And we together should celebrate. We together should collectively own these stories and see them as your wins. These are your people. They're part of us. They're part of our community. When people come back from the life course weekend away and they talk about, this was my experience of experiencing God for the first time, that we together should rejoice in these stories that we get to hear, because they belong to us and we belong to them. People wander for all kinds of reasons in life. Stuff that's gone on for them personally. They seek in all kinds of places. I've said this multiple times in this space. But we are seeing a rise of contemporary spirituality where people are seeking a connection with something outside of themselves. And I would like to say that what they're seeking is to fulfill a God-shaped hole within them that will not be filled until they meet the living God. Or maybe it's an internal wandering. Maybe even some of this might apply to some of us here tonight, but there's an internal wandering that sometimes happens where sometimes we get busy and we just kind of disconnect from God. Or maybe we go through something painful and it is hard to be in the presence of God. So we choose disconnection. We seek fulfillment somewhere else. We seek satisfaction somewhere else. But the truth is, you will only feel fulfilled and comforted and known in the presence of the living God. And if that's you, there'll be an opportunity to respond, to be prayed for later. And so I want to pose this question to us. What are we, the flock of St. Mary's, going to do about the wandering people that we know? What are we going to do about it? Because I'd like to say that I think we are meant to join in the actions of the kingdom, that we are meant to extend invites, that we're meant to extend ourselves, that I think we're called to mirror the actions of the shepherd that we read about in this parable, where we go out beyond this place and we go and seek the ones who need saving and we invite them. We don't save them, God does, but we can invite them. We can invite them to join us. And that is what this parable is seeking to do. And don't get me wrong, I love being part of this flock. It is my favourite place to be. And it is good that we come together on Sundays and we worship and we spend time together and we pray together and there is safety in our flock. But we also have to go out. It goes beyond Sundays. And at the moment in the life of the church, and you'll see at different times in the life of the church, different things will get an emphasis. At the moment we're looking at evangelism. But that's what our focus is at the moment. And for some of us here, we're evangelists. And you will know if you are because you like talking about Jesus. Or you just find it very easy to talk about Jesus. Jesus just comes up in conversation. If that is you, then you are an evangelist. You have a gift of evangelism. And can I speak direct to you and say, be alert and alive at this time. It's our little season. So come to life. Ask God to fill you afresh with his Spirit for the work of his kingdom. But I also recognize that for some of us, actually inviting people is just harder. It's harder to find the words to say, that we might worry about what to say. And that's okay. But I do want us all to count ourselves in, that at this time I think we are meant to operate as one flock, all in it together, morning and evening service, that we operate as one. And so if this is more daunting to you, can I ask you to count yourself in, to be bold and courageous for the sake of the kingdom? And as I've said, I do think we're meant to move as a flock at the moment. And so I've asked a couple of people if I can talk to them about their experience of coming to the Life Dinner and also inviting people. Where's Becky? Come on. That was a very sweet here. Come and join me, Becky. Come on, give her a round of applause as she comes up.
Hello.
Hi.
And you asked me to talk about how I...
Yeah, how do you invite people? Tell us about that.
So I'm not the type of person who could be like on the street shouting about Jesus. I just have too much crippling anxiety. But God's working on me. But what you will catch me doing is mentioning things in conversation with friends, or like in the kitchen at work, just mentioning a little bit of my church doing a pop-up dinner. We're doing 2 this year. Come get some Lebanese food. Or my church is feeding the unhoused community. Come and help us cook or put tables out. And that's the way that I find that I'm most confident in sharing the work that St. Mary's does, and invite my friends to this space and hopefully sow in some seeds.
Come on. And what's been the response so far when you've mentioned like we're having a pop-up dinner? How's that gone down so far?
It's been quite good, especially when I mentioned that they can bring wine. People think that my church is quite cool because I also mentioned that we're quite inclusive. So it's been a positive response so far. I haven't had it yet so far, but we're working on it still.
Come on. Great. Thanks, Becky. Where's Kate? Come on. So you did come last year to the dinner.
I did.
How did you find the dinner last year?
It was yummy. It was good. It was nice, yeah. And I think it's really chilled. I think most of it, like you said, you can trust John. Like, you can trust him with your non-Christian friends. He's not going to scare them away, hopefully. It's mainly just chatting and kind of bringing them into the building and, you know, opening up the space for them, I think.
And how are you feeling about inviting people to this year's dinners?
Well, I'm not like Becky. I'm a yapper. I like to chat to people, so I don't mind chatting about it and things. I think for me, I find it quite easy to just drop Jesus into conversation, and I think people find it quite interesting, especially being gay. They're like, "Oh, you're Christian? How does that work?" So then, kind of opening up that conversation, I think people are often a bit more interested, and then just kind of dropping in, "Oh, we're holding a pop-up dinner. You can come if you want. It's really chill," and then kind of going from there. I think.
Great, thanks. Lisa.
Hey, Bestie.
Hi, Bestie. We often get to be on the stage together, do we?
Oh, no, we don't. We should play more, shouldn't we?
We
Yeah.
should, yeah. It's good, it's good. All right, we should do this. So, Lisa, you came to the church many moons ago.
17 years next week, I think. Oh,
And it was one of these talks.
It was John, not you.
I wasn't here then.
2.0.
2.0, yeah, don't worry, I'm like the remodel.
We should focus on this.
We should.
So 17 years ago, I came in the building. John was Kirstine, and he preached the gospel and then said, look, if you're here for the first time or you're new to the church, come bring yourself to life course. So I was one person that counted myself in, and I dragged my housemate, Nikki, who is currently with in New Zealand today. I got a picture of the two of them together, which was very bizarre and also lovely, but also rude because I wasn't there. And I brought her for safety net, but she thought I was her safety net. So that was when we say it's the best way to get to know the church, to be like, I was like, can I actually trust you? Are you a bunch of weirdos? I'd run from church before, and I discovered I could, obviously, because I'm still here. And then, so like on Friday, for example, I was here at a kids' movie night. My kids and my friends' kids were sitting together over there on a sofa, and I was downstairs stuffing my face with cheese. And I was chatting to my friends Steph and Angela, and I just said, look, do you want to come to this dinner? And I was really upfront about what it is, because I'm not about tricking people into church, but I just said, look, it's delicious Lebanese food, it's really cheap, you're never going to get a meal in Marylebone this cheap, and delicious. There's loads of food, there'll be live music, and John will talk about this course that we run here for about 5 to 10 minutes. You up for coming? It'll be a right laugh. And so they're coming on the Friday night, I hope. They said they are, they've got yeses. So I'll just remind them with some WhatsApp messages.
Classic. You take that. Hopefully that has given you a flavour for how we might want to invite people to the church, how we might invite people for the dinner. But ultimately, as I said earlier, kingdom people seek wandering people, and we are called to be kingdom people. It is innately how we're designed to be. Kingdom people seek wandering people. So let's say we go for this, right? Let's just say we're all up for this. We're up for inviting our mates along to this pop-up dinner that we're throwing, the best one in Marylebone. How are we going to do it? I'm really glad you asked me, because I got some tips. Number 1, please do not go this alone. And what I mean by that is pray. That we do nothing but rooting ourselves in prayer first. And undeniably, prayer is the most powerful weapon we have. So pray. Pray with your flatmates. Pray with your family. Join us on Tuesday mornings if you can to pray. Come this Wednesday night when we will pray as a whole church. There'll be an opportunity for you to write down the names of the people you're inviting and we'll pray for them. Do not stop praying until it comes. If it's me personally, I pray before I invite them and I pray before I speak and I pray for them right up until the event is done and dusted. And if they say yes to come to the life course, I'm committing to praying for them for the next 7 weeks. And I do not stop praying until it is fully over. Commit yourself to prayer. Bring it into your daily prayer life with God. God does nothing but in answer to our prayer. On Tuesday, as a staff team, we gathered and they had various prayer stations to go around, a little bit like what you're going to get to do on Wednesday. And one of them was like, who are you inviting to the dinner? And I kind of had this question out there for them, and we went around as little groups. And at the end, I took the sheet of paper away and I counted 130 people are being invited by the staff team alone. That was our starting point on Tuesday. We think we're currently getting close to 200, just so we all know where we're sitting at. So 1, don't go alone, root yourself in prayer. Number 2, as Lisa said, I do think it's wise to tell them what they're coming to. And I know some people will choose not to do this. You might just choose to bring them along and surprise them. Totally your choice. They're your friends, your loved ones, you know them best. However, I think it's wiser to actually tell them what they're coming to. There's not such a shock to the little systems. And if you're someone who does find this a little bit harder, if you're like, you know what, this is just not my natural space, but I do want to give it a go, I want to count myself in, why not say something like, hey, my church that I go to, that means you've outed yourself as going to church on Sundays if you haven't already with your friends, can I say? But my church that I go to is throwing a pop-up dinner. There's going to be great Lebanese food. There's going to be some live music. There'll be some live performances. The person who leads the church is going to give a short but entertaining talk about this course it runs, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Would you like to come as my guest? Sweet and simple. Your friends know you. Your colleagues know you. Your loved ones know you. They'll trust you. You might even want to tell them a little bit about why you choose to come here. What is it about this place that you choose to call home each week? Thirdly, God absolutely loves it when we choose to join in the actions of the kingdom, but it will not go uncontested. Things will not be smooth sailing if we choose to do this, okay? It wasn't for Jesus and it won't be for us. Things will start to kick off around us, I promise you. Other excitable things will pop into your diary. You'll become distracted occasionally. Other stuff just happens around us. But what I want to say is this. No matter what happens, if your friends reject you, if they're even cross at being invited, it's happened before, we've invited people and they've been cross at being invited. They often do thank you later down the line just to say if that happens to you. But what I want to say is this. Whatever happens in the next couple of weeks, do not allow it to distract you from the work of the kingdom. In fact, here's my advice. Go a little bit harder for the kingdom. A great dear friend of mine called Janie Cronin, he leads a church in Rochdale, said to me once, when it feels like the enemy has got a little marker on your back, just remind him who it is that you worship and worship all that more. And that's always been my attitude to this stuff. We're going to be opposed if we choose to do the work of the kingdom. What if you really, really want to do this, but you feel like you're disqualified or you feel like you've compromised at the moment? This is a great opportunity to come back before God, to lay whatever it is before him. Receive his forgiveness, his grace, his mercy afresh, recognizing we all have to do this. Know that the gifts that God has given you and the calling upon your life will never be taken away from you. God's desire is to use you. And so I want to say this to us. I call upon us as a church, or what I'm going to dearly call us a flock, to do the work of the kingdom over the next couple of weeks, to extend ourselves, to invite people to come along, to look for the wandering people, to speak to our friends, our loved ones, our colleagues, and tell them about what's happening, so that we can join in the actions of the kingdom. Because I think if we just simply ask the Spirit to show us who it is that we're supposed to invite, and we don't do this on our own strength, we do it with God, we'll find that actually he's already gone ahead of us. He's already starting to prepare their hearts and minds. God is already at work, and we're simply looking to join in the actions of the kingdom, as I've said. We think we're close to 200 invites having gone out. That's where we think we're starting with. That is incredibly exciting. It's an amazing feat from us. And as I've said already, what we're looking for is us all to count ourselves in at this time, for us all to join in. And so let me ask you this question. Who is it that you could be inviting to come and join us for dinner? Who could you be sat with at the table? Friend, family, teammate, colleague? Who is it? Who is it that God is asking you to invite? In a moment, I'm going to ask us to respond. We're going to do a little tally. I'll give a number. You'll put your hands in the air. We'll do it in privacy if everyone with their eyes closed. But we're going to start by praying, because as I've said, that is always our starting point. So why don't we close our eyes? Jesus, we recognize that you are here with us. And Jesus, we choose to turn away from anything that we know that we shouldn't have been doing. And we choose to return to you without pretense. Thank you, Jesus, that you are for us and not against us. Thank you, God, that you are the good shepherd, that you know us so well when even we wander away, you pursue us and call us home. And God, we ask that right now you would be prompting us, that you would give us the names and the people that you are asking us to invite, that you would make us bold and courageous for the sake of your kingdom. Holy Spirit, would you come now? Would you fill us afresh with your presence? Empower us to do your work, Lord. And just in a moment of silence, why don't you ask God to give you the names of the people he's asking you to invite? Amen.